Your search for unbeatable internet speeds is over. Visit Docomo Pacific today and sign up for as low as $60 a month so you can experience our fast, reliable internet speeds for yourself. Docomo Pacific, better together.
sit down up here. Oh, yeah, I'm doing. All the cabinet follow on that, and the Senate.
I have to move this back a little. Because I gotta move the commission.
Go for the senior delegate.
Yeah, Carter.
Holy shit, what do you mean? Liz, good afternoon. Had good lunch.
Yeah. I just went and did a tour of the DY
Yeah,
system.
still waiting for some members of the House and the Senate.
No, it's already hot now, just fix it. Go to your turn. No, it's off, it's on. Turn it on again, sure, and then just fix it. All right, you're good. All right. You're down, press the link, touch the link. I'll turn it on, and then just fix it.
Can you,
We're waiting on the Secretary of Finance.
John, can you get chair for the Secretary of Finance and Budget here?
Usually given a presentation, we'll try to get that for you. You'll be able to see it a lot better.
Let us talk about that meeting. You're the one bring it up.
I'm gonna vote. So,
Open that tap out there, get some more chairs for. You got voting chairs, no? Yeah, for the back for some of the.
See if that works. Just waiting on the Secretary. The Secretary of Finance.
Yeah, come. Chairman. Light. Over there, yeah. Senate President coming? We're just waiting for the senators and before we start. Collect.
What's included in the current House bill.
Come again, President? Captain? Senator Joe? Senator Cruz? Senator Cruz, over here. Just podium, what's your name? Donald? Okay, let's go ahead and start. I know that we're still waiting for a couple of senators. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say thank you for joining us this afternoon. And before we start, I'd like to welcome our Congresswoman, our delegate from Washington, who is here this afternoon to join us on this press conference. And I'd like to thank the senators who are here with us this afternoon, and members of the House, the Speaker and the Senate President who are here, the Lieutenant Governor and myself. I say thank you. I called this press conference this afternoon because we have issues that we need to discuss with everybody, and I hope that the information information that we're putting out this afternoon is informative to the media also, because I know you guys be very anxious to put it out about our situation here in the Commonwealth right now. And I'm very, very happy that our delegate is here this afternoon, so she can explain some of the issues that we've been having and what's happening in Washington also. So without further ado, can we have our delegate start off? Go
Thank
ahead.
you very
Thank
much,
you.
Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and thank you everybody for being here this afternoon. First of all, I want to say also thank you for giving me the privilege of having a seat at the table in the 902 consultations. And I thought that that was very important given the fact that there's some major asks that we are undertaking, and it is important that the delegate's office and the CNMI government are locked in step with regards to the messaging that we're giving to Washington, D.C. In order to move these asks forward, we all have to be on the same page with regards to our current financial situation. And in our conversations in Washington, D.C., it was made very clear that the CNMI is, I guess for a lack of a better word, our finances are, we are in a severe budget crisis, guys. The House is on fire. And what began as a 902 consultation ended up to be a conversation about what it is that the federal government could do immediately to provide some relief. And so we are all here to, one, be lockstep and be very clear about where we're at with regards to the state of the CNMI's finances. We have to be very clear on that message, and I've been saying that since the beginning of my term. We're not going to get the help if we're not saying the same thing. And two, you know, we cannot get anything of what we're asking for unless we ourselves make some very tough decisions, because these asks will come with some conditions, okay? In DC, it was presented to the federal government that there's a potentiality of the school losing accreditation. You know, GHLI is at risk. Medicaid matching fund is at risk. Potential for landfill and prison federal receivership. There's a huge impact on being able to continue to fund off-island medical referral. And so, you know, the way that we have looked at the situation, and I thought that the Secretary of Finance and the OMB director who stayed behind to continue the conversations after the governor returned back to the CNMI was to look at the situation and break it down in a more manageable, I guess, requests, right? And they've broken it down in terms of quarters. And the finances and the projections that were given is directly tied into how these quarterly allotments or these quarterly asks are supposed to be addressed. And so I can say today that there is commitment from the federal government, the Interior, and the White House to assist with the first quarter ask. But that commitment comes with conditions. And the condition basically is that the CNMI government acts like the house is on fire by implementing some reforms. Specifically, the Office of the Interior had funded the 2020 Fiscal Summit report, right? I think there's a lot of people on this table who were a part of that conversation. That report was funded by the Interior. And so they're using that paper, you know, which involved the collaboration of a lot of people on this table as a guiding post, right? And so we basically cannot continue operating at the current levels. And the CNMI government has to make some really tough decisions. And I don't envy anybody in this room, right? Because that's a tough decision to make. Duplication of certain positions, austerity conditions and whatnot. Those are not for me to make. That's a decision not for me to dive into. That's something that folks on this table are gonna have further conversations about. Two, that I also want to make very clear. I know that there's a lot of pushback with regards to getting the MPLT loan, but the numbers that were crunched assumes that the CNMI government exhausts all remedies, right? And so that loan basically has to be on the table moving forward as part of this conversation, because the numbers that were presented to the federal government was that we are short $103 million at the current operational levels. That 103 includes the assumption that we get the $29 million loan. But even with that, you know, maintaining at the current levels is not sustainable, and so there's going to be some very tough decisions that are going to need to be made here in short order. The second quarter, we have identified some money, but it requires legislative approval in the U.S. House side. And I just, you know, want to manage everybody's expectations, given how hard the environment is in Washington, D.C. right now with regards to what they call bailouts, because let's make no mistake about this. This is a bailout, right? Those funds have been identified, but now it's my job, and the pressure is on me to figure out how to get that piece of legislation through to get us through the second quarter. Then we have the bigger amounts on the third and fourth quarter. And I'm going to be as transparent as possible with everybody, because I think that the public deserves full transparency with regards to the types of conditions that we're facing to be able to continue operating and providing these essential services. One of the topics of consideration is extending the Tinian military lease area. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's also on the table. There are other options on the table that are being explored and are being looked at. And as those options become more firm, where I can present it and share it with everybody, I will come back and I will do so just like I'm doing so today. But one thing that I do need to get before I go back, I'm here for 1 week. One thing that I do need to get from the CNMI government is a commitment with regards to the loan, and that is an action that we're taking. And two, what is the plan with regards to right-sizing the government, making sure that we are spending what we can afford. And so with that, Governor, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in that conversation, because a lot of the ask requires the House to be able to move. And so, you know, understanding the situation makes me a better advocate on behalf of our community.
Thank you, Congresswoman. You know, when I was in DC with my team and all that, Congresswoman joined us on all the conversation with the Department of Interior, starting with the first day, second day, and really appreciate that, and thank you. And in line of that, today I asked the Secretary of Finance to come up with the real picture of where we're at in the Commonwealth budget, financial situation, and she did that. When we first submitted our budget for fiscal year 2026, we submitted 179 million. That those things have changed. So now we're looking at the true picture of where we're at as far as our budget in the Commonwealth. It went down to 156 million. That's kind of shocking. So we are planning and preparing ourselves for the worst situation, worst scenario. How can we cut down a lot of issues, programs? So we're looking into austerity issues. And Secretary of Finance, can you go ahead and present that, the scenario, where we at in the budget situation, and what our plans are for austerity?
Thank you,
And
Governor.
we've been we've met with all the House and the Senate last week and this morning also, when we talk about the budget, and this is what's coming. We need to change the budget submission. Go ahead.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor and Delegate King-Hinds. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and members of the press. Thank you for being here today and for the opportunity to provide you with an important update regarding our CNMI's finances for the fiscal year 2026. Earlier this year, the Department of Finance projected optimistic revenues supported by the growth in tourism as forecasted by the Marianas Visitors Authority, new tax measures such as the construction tax and infrastructure activity. However, rapidly changing economic conditions have altered that outlook. Declining tourist arrivals, reduced airline service, and slowing tax collections are clear signals of an economic downturn. Under the leadership of Governor Apatang and his direction for a forecast of current conditions and a comprehensive picture of the CNMI's fiscal health, we have revised our FY 2026 revenue forecast downward by 22.9 million, bringing total projected revenues to 156.7 million. This is approximately 2% below the current fiscal year's budget levels. For FY 2025, the current fiscal year, with only a few days left, we also anticipate a current year shortfall of about 2.8 million, driven primarily by decreases in excise taxes and hotel occupancy tax. These declines come at a time when our government faces heavy and inflexible obligations. Chief among them is the CNMI Settlement Fund minimum annual payment of $29 million, which we must meet to avoid default and federal intervention. In addition, we are confronted with significant funding needs for public schools, the Northern Marianas College, the Marianas Visitors Authority recovery efforts, the health insurance for government employees and retirees, the Medicaid local share, essential utilities, and critical government operations. In total, the unfunded budgetary gap of over 100 million is an inadequate funding level that cannot be ignored and must be addressed. I must also emphasize the urgent challenges facing our tourism sector, as reported by MVA. The MVA had projected a strong rebound in arrivals for FY26, but due to suspended flights, increased competition, and shifting travel demand, arrivals are now expected to drop to just 129,000 visitors, a steep 22% decline from previous years. This is deeply concerning and requires swift action, including emergency funding and sustained support for tourism recovery. The Department of Finance stands ready to work closely with Governor Apatang, Lieutenant Governor Mendiola, and the leadership and our legislature to realign the 2026 budget and implement immediate, medium, and long-term fiscal reforms. We also look forward to further discussions with MPLT to secure the pension loan. These reforms and initiatives will be necessary not only to address the shortfall, but also to ensure the continuity of essential services for our people. This is a challenging moment for the Commonwealth, but with decisive leadership and careful prioritization and cooperation of all branches of government, we can navigate these fiscal challenges together. Thank you very much for being here today, and I pass it over to the Special Assistant for OMB for her comments on our development of the austerity plans and considerations that are on the table.
Good afternoon, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Congresswoman, and members. In light of the revised estimates for our projected resources, the CNMI is once again compelled to initiate alignment of government operations with available funding. While these steps may be difficult and unpopular, they are necessary to stabilize operations and ensure the continuity of essential public services in the upcoming fiscal year. Immediate reforms tied not only to austerity, but other areas are under active consideration some of which remain in effect. Notably, a reduction in work hours would take effect immediately in response to the anticipated decline in revenues. Further measures being evaluated include reduction in force and furloughs as part of a broader effort to right-size government and eliminate duplicative functions. Suspension of personnel system rules and regulations pending legal guidance from the Attorney General, potentially to authorize through legislative provisions in the budget appropriation measure will aid expediting implementation. Unpaid holidays, potentially affecting all 15, if not all 15 recognized holidays to reduce personnel costs. We recognize the economic impact these reforms may have. A reduced workforce spending power will likely result in lower BGR and income tax collections, further straining government resources. Nonetheless, these actions are being considered with the goal of preserving fiscal stability and protecting core services for the people of the CNMI. Thank you.
Grace, can you go over the PowerPoint?
Oh, okay, I didn't have it connected, but the governor would like for me just to share on certain scenarios that we were running with him, and this is considering the adjusted revenues of 156 million. Again, major factors of what the available funding and the level of reduction in work hours really depends on our future discussions with MPLT. And so the pension loan of 29 million does make a big impact on how many hours we will reduce and the impact of that. And right now what we are considering with the MPLT loan still brings us down to 64 hours. And that's where we're gonna start.
See, we don't have USB.
I have a USB, yeah.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. It's okay, I'll do it. Sorry, give me one moment. Just has to recognize it.
Yeah.
No, it just does it automatically. There, that one, it's okay, it's right here. So again, these are preliminary numbers that we have shared with the governor, and this is assuming a successful negotiation with MPLT. And there's two scenarios in terms of the level of funding that we are able to provide to the public school system and priority obligations, like we mentioned earlier, including adequate funding for government facilities, government utilities, and government operations. This brings us to a 64-hour work week. Again, this is assuming the reduction of gross revenues down to 156 million, leaving available for personnel at 59 million. And so again, these are preliminary numbers. We are still looking forward to work with MPLT. And there's some prioritization that we must consider for who will be affected in the austerity cut. And those guidelines are still being developed. Again, this is our starting point, and hopefully we're successful with MPLT.
Governor, may I?
Go ahead.
So assuming that, that the government proceeds with implementing some of these fiscal reforms, I've been given assurances by the Office of the Interior and President Trump's team that there will be, that they will be covering the ask by Governor Apatang for the first quarter to the tune of, I think, $5.7 million. They've submitted a list of priorities to include Department of Finance, ERP Financial Systems, the medical referral program, government utilities, making sure that we meet our obligations with regards to Department of Corrections inmate care, fuel for government operations, communications and supplies for the government, as well as the 25% retirees pension benefits. And so in terms of the first quarter ask, that is the anticipated amount that the government should be receiving, and that is the list of priorities that the government has submitted, which has been relayed that it will be funded.
Go ahead, over there.
I guess we'll take questions.
Yeah, if I could ask, how long are we projecting for these measures to take place in these different scenarios? Are we gonna be in austerity projected for a year or more?
Thanks for that question, Tomas. Right now, it's uncertain how long that's going to be. Again, that's why we're working closely with our delegate, because it also depends on the level of federal assistance we're able to get, and that will determine our scenarios will change, and the reduction in hours or furloughs or whatever's on the table for austerity will be affected with more federal assistance.
Clarification on the numbers earlier. You mentioned that the budget for FY26, which should be done by 22.9 million, right? But earlier, the Congresswoman was mentioning about 103.
Those are unfunded obligations.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you're talking about federal assistance, what do you talk about? Are they writing us a check? Are they going to be supporting something else? I mean, what is the actual ask that they would be giving to us?
So right now, the discussions are around determining the CNMI's need, right? Identifying the budgetary gap. And that was most of our conversation. Right now, we're moving towards what can they do? What do they have the authority to do? What funds do they have available to provide us immediate assistance? And that's gonna take more time. Like the delegate mentioned, you know, a bigger amount of federal assistance requires Congress's action. And so, right now, we're just showing them the level of the budgetary gap, which is.
Did they mention at any time during those talks, did they reference what was going on with Puerto Rico in the past or anything? It's just that, are we a unique situation?
I think we were just really focused on trying to figure out how to address the immediate needs of the CNMI. And so what's happening right now is given the breakdown provided by the CNMI to the federal government, where can we move money quickly that does not require appropriation? And so they've looked internally and are looking to shift priorities and move those monies to the CNMI, provided that the CNMI meets the conditions that have been given to be able to draw down on these funds. But that's already in the conversations.
When did the Senate and the House hear about this? Just now?
You mean in terms of the revised projection?
Yeah.
We started discussions last week and continued into today.
Did we lift the last austerity too soon?
I would say that in terms of lifting the austerity, the conditions change quickly. And so again, our forecast was based on the FY24 collections, which were stronger than FY23. However, there were a series of events after that time that we lifted austerity, such as the Jeju crash that happened in December, and then the following reduction in flights, cancellation of flights, and all of that. And so again, the conditions are changing rapidly, and this is Governor Apatang and the leadership's decision to respond to those changes.
And Congresswoman King-Hinds, you mentioned something in there that I think is pretty huge in extending the lease area. Can you talk about how you're thinking through that, and if more islands are possibly up for sale to bail us out?
I think the conversation right now is in the preliminary stages, and the thought was to extend the current lease as it relates to Tinian.
How much do we have left to give?
So it would be just upping the term. It wouldn't be expanding the amount of property right now. It's just to up the number of years of the existing lease. But you know, that's not for me to decide. That's I want to put this out as early as possible, right? Because I don't want anybody to be blindsided by that conversation. This is something that needs to be considered and discussed by the entire community. And given the fact that you know, we are operating under such a constrained timeline, right? That's a conversation that needs to be had now with especially for the leadership of Tinian, who have to answer to the community, right? And so, you know, that's not for me to decide. That's for the people to decide, and you know, I represent the people, and ultimately, if that's what we're gonna pursue, that's what we're gonna pursue, but that is an option on the table.
Well, Congresswoman, what is the mechanism for making that happen? When we did the divert program, that was with CPA, so that was pretty easy to do an in-house thing, even though you work with everybody who's out there. With regards to extending a lease that was really part of the covenant agreement, what is the mechanism? How would that approval happen? Where does that go through? Where does it start?
So I think this is why I said that these conversations are very preliminary, because there's a lot of research that needs to be done with regards to how all this is gonna work out, right? Given the fact that Tinian property is public lands, and you know, how all that will work out, right? I think the legal research is being done, and I put it out there so that the House has notice and the Senate has notice, so that they can have their councils start looking into it, so that the governor's council can start looking into it, the AG's office can start looking into it, and that, you know, the community's put on notice that that's a potential area of opportunity.
You also mentioned that they would require us to exhaust all remedies that we have, talking about that loan from MPLT for $29 million. Is part of these conversations, would they be asking us to deplete everything that we have from MPLT in terms of the finances and the investments that they have?
Well, I think the issue, right, is that everybody has to have have some skin in the game, right? And the fact is, you know, we're saying one thing, but we're not doing what we're saying. We're saying we don't have money, but we keep spending money like we have money, right? And so those two things need to marry up. And, you know, I'm very happy that the governor has taken this route in terms of looking at the budget, kind of assessing where we're at, and being very transparent to the public as to what the fiscal resources look like, and the fact that we are operating at a level that is not sustainable. And adjustments need to be made, and in order for the federal government to be able to assist, we need to show that we're doing everything that we can to be able to help ourselves out. And so this is what, you know, the course of action that is being pursued. And I think, you know, a lot of people are upset about having to go and dip into MPLT funds, but at this point, what is the option? You know, we've lost ground with regards to growing our tourism industry this last 2 years, because we've been bickering about a direction, whether or not we're gonna be all in about opening up all markets, right? And here we are. Now we're dipping into very limited resources that we have. And now, you know, we are at the mercy of the federal government, because they have every right to condition whatever it is that they give us, right?
And Governor, what about schools, education? PSS has made a lot of headlines about what it needs, so this obviously isn't good news for anyone. So will the schools be funded? Will the school year be cut? I know the commissioners in the room.
How much money we projected for the school?
Right now, because of the changing scenarios that we have, our first one consideration and one scenario, of course, is a funding level at 40 million, and that was the initial proposal that was submitted in April. However, considering the priority obligations that we now must include in our budget scenarios, that may go down. Again, it's a percentage of our available gross revenues at 25%. 40 million is above that requirement, and so those are considerations that are on the table.
Do you have a ballpark figure of what you're going to give PSS?
Well, we're trying to start at 40 million. That's our target. However, again, we have these priority obligations that we must consider as well.
Wouldn't 25% of 156 million be about like 37 or 38 million anyway?
You're talking about gross revenues. That doesn't take into account the debt service and everything that comes after what's available for appropriation. So right now, with the House bill that's at the legislature, the 25% is calculated on the gross revenues available for appropriation.
I have a question. The federal government runs at a massive deficit. How is it that CNMI cannot run on a minor deficit?
I don't think the issue is the deficit, right? The issue is the lack of revenue, right? Where's the money coming from?
Well, where's the federal money coming from? It's, everybody's struggling, the entire world. But they're acting as if they're going to be making money in the future. We are going to be making money in the future or not, I don't know. I'm just wondering, isn't that a double standard?
Unfortunately, you know, the federal government is gonna do what the federal government does, right? But if we're all reading the room and paying attention to what's happening in Washington DC, you know, going before a body who has been cutting to fit government across
Yeah, they just
the
raised
board,
the military
right?
budget by a massive amount. They're not cutting, they're just saying they're cutting. Sorry,
It's not something that we can answer.
I got you,
It's-
got it?
Yeah.
We don't
so
have the,
We don't have the authority to
Yeah.
question the federal government in terms of what their budget spending is.
the important thing is that we can only spend what we have. We don't wanna continue to spend money and, we cannot pay our vendors and all that. We wanna make sure that what we have is what we have. We don't wanna overcommit ourselves. And that's the thing, that's exactly what the Department of Interior wants to see, that we are true to the fact that we are not spending more than what we should. And they wanna see it. Besides the audit, that's, hopefully we can complete by October. And these guys are actually looking at us. And they know what's happening here in the Commonwealth. So that's why we decided to take a look at the budget once again and make sure that we present a true picture. Even our people can understand that, you know, we have to cut. We don't have the money. So we just have to work together and see what we can do to come up with some additional funding somewhere. And hopefully we can get the loan from MPOT to help the public school system and the retirees also. And thanks to our delegate for continuing to help us out in Washington. I even terminated 2 of my staff in Washington, the lawyers. We don't have the money to pay them.
And the question is really for anyone, and perhaps some lawmakers in the room might want to comment. So while we're stopping the bleeding and we're putting out this fire on this house, what are we doing to build other houses? Or are we also gonna not just be aggressively cutting, but aggressively trying to add to the economy? So what's the solution? Even my students at Northern Marianas College ask, what is our plan?
Okay, can you explain our?
So what you see right now is the immediate considerations that require, that can come from the administration through a directive. Other fiscal reforms that we are considering for the medium and long term include a lot of legislation that's required. The 2 industries before us that can have some development in the near future is the casino industry and an auto industry. With an interested investor right now. And so discussions have been made with the legislature on progress that we can make in terms of legislation that can move forward. And so, again, it's open for ideas of what we can do, especially from your class at NMC. But again, these are ideas that also came from the Fiscal Summit in 2020 and areas that we can move forward.
I know we just got a viewer comment, and I know this was something that Senator Manny Castro actually started the conversation on again this year. Is the legislature committing to reducing the number of members to contribute to the limited government budget?
That's actually besides the issue here. You know, let's let the legislature deal with that. But we're talking about the whole general budget for the Commonwealth. And we need to face the fact that we just don't have the funding to continue with the original proposal, fiscal budget proposal to the legislature. So we need to cut down where we know we can survive. And we need to implement a fiscal reform for the government. And that's very important for us, even the federal government. I know the federal government is cutting down on a lot of stuff also, and they have more money than us.
And Congresswoman, could I ask you just about the climate in Washington? We all saw the headlines about Trump imposing a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas. Who knows what's gonna happen in the next hour? So, I mean, how are you operating, and what's the reality? Is it just, we don't know?
The reality is you adapt and overcome. And that is what I wake up having to deal with and do every single morning, right? And I think there's two ways we can go about this. Rage against the machine, or focus and figure out how to get over it and move forward. And one of the things that we're working really hard with the administration is trying to revive our tourism industry and trying to figure out how within these trade conversations the CNMI can be included, right? I'm supposed to be heading out to Japan if this CR passes to talk with some folks, the Japanese diet there, to see what type of investments that could be made directly here as part of these tariff conversations that are, these deals that have been struck. And so there's a lot of different things that are being worked on right now on the tourism side. It's just taking a little bit longer. And then obviously, there's new developments every day in terms of federal policy that we have to address and work through. But, none of this is easy. And I don't think it's gonna get any easier. But what we do is what we don't do is give up. And what we also don't do is fight amongst each other. And what we also don't do is look back and say coulda, shoulda, woulda. What we do is come together as leaders and focus on a direction and all commit ourselves to getting ourselves out of this hole. And today is the beginning of that effort, okay? And I know that I wish I could have come with a bag of money, but that's just not the reality in Washington, D.C. This next ask that we're about to do, which is take some identified funds that already are within the CNMI's coffers and reappropriate them for government operations, it's a Herculean task. But we're gonna do it. We're gonna make the ask. But I'm gonna need everybody's support. Whether it be writing letters, writing resolutions, whatever it may be. We all have to have each other's six with regards to this issue. That's just the way it's gonna have to be.
If I may, Governor. So, I know we were talking about some of the stuff that we needed to do in the immediate, just to try and help stop the bleeding. And if you look at this presentation by Secretary of Finance, some of this are actually what the governor already has started implementing. So if you look at merging some duplicate agencies, we're talking about working with the legislature on some of the amendments of casino law, for example. These are some of the plans that we have in place that will try to mitigate this problem. Of course, it's not going to solve the financial situation, but it's going to stop the bleeding while we work on a long-term solution that will actually get us out of the hole. Again, we don't want to look back and look at what should have been done, but we're here now as a group, as leaders of the Commonwealth, and I ask the entire Commonwealth that we sit and work through this together, especially the leadership that are put in these seats, and not point finger, but rather find solutions and work together. Make recommendations, make suggestions, because again, the governor is, there's all these plans that are in place, but if we don't come together, we're just gonna waste our time trying to just go back and forth at this point. In order for us to move forward, I think the most important thing that we need to do is just kind of work together as leaders for the Commonwealth. Of course, it's going to be hard. It's a difficult time. Everybody in here is faced with this decision, and we're going to have to explain this to our constituent one way or another. But now's the time to accept that we're in a fiscal crisis. We've been harping about this for some time, but now we're faced with the decision of having actually to make that decision. So it's tough. I believe it's tough for everybody to make that, but it's either we do it, or we face the consequences of actually having a bigger issue in finances. So the governor has tasked the Economic Council, and there's other task force that he's going to be appointing to actually address some of these issues immediately, to include, for example, merging government agencies, another, like, stopping all travel, for example. Some of these travels that are not needed, these are some of the implementations that are going to happen immediately that's going to try address the bleeding. I know the council has actually made some recommendations, and we're working through that, pending the governor's approval, so that we can propose legislations to the legislature. So some of the actions that we're taking is actually it's being implemented. It's just now a matter of more just trying to expedite some of this stuff to see some fruits out of it.
Mr. Lieutenant Governor, so speaking of travel, I mean, what about more local travel? Some of the focus here. Do some of these cuts, are you going to be looking at maybe vehicles that taxpayers are paying for?
Sure.
For elected leaders, for appointed leaders at the head of different agencies, both on the semi-autonomous and then also the line agencies and all that. Are these some of the things that you're looking at also?
So if you're going to talk about elected leaders, right, you got to make sure that we differentiate between the branches of government, because the governor and I have no control over the legislature or the judicial branch. I think that's a conversation that should be had with the presiding officers of the legislature or the judicial branch. But in terms of our responsibility, we can actually make those implementation in the executive branch to help stop the bleeding. So that's our part. The governor and I's part is to actually do what we can within our power to actually try and help that situation. So yes, there'll be some directives, executive orders that's going to be coming out of the governor's office that will address those issues. But again, we got emergency vehicles, we got all kinds of vehicles that are responding to our community. The important thing about it is to make sure that we don't compromise those emergency vehicles. So that's the consideration. Those will be forthcoming.
And so speaking of the Senate and House, we haven't heard from them yet. If I could ask respectfully, do you have a statement, the House Speaker or Senate President, on what happens next and where the legislature will come in on this? And sorry, if you don't mind, we have 3 microphones just so the public can hear you.
Sure. If I may, the budget bill is before the Senate, as everyone knows. Today is September 22nd. We just found this information out in dialogue starting last week, further on this morning. So we have an idea of the numbers that are being thrown out there. How do we get from where we're at and what we've been working on since the budget submission in April to now fast tracking it and hoping to avert a conference committee is something that we all are endeavoring to do. This is the whole point of coming here together. Like has been said, there's no looking back. We have to deal with what is before us, and any efforts otherwise is a waste of time.
How quickly do you have to act? Just doesn't the fiscal year
The
begin?
budget needs to be submitted and signed by October 1st and reviewed by the AG's office, so you can do the math.
So will that happen?
We hope to. I would do my very best with our counterparts in the House, the leadership of the House, to ensure that we, again, cover down.
Yeah, and could I just get your comment, because you said you found out pretty much the same time that we did about this forecast. Does that concern you that the legislature who controls the purse doesn't know, essentially,
Well,
the state of the Commonwealth's finances?
I can't hold their feet to the fire because they were working under the information that they had. Again, they've articulated the reasons why the fluctuation in the budget is what it is, and right now that is not of our concern. What is clear and what we do understand is that the cuts are needing to be made, and so we have to work under that assumption and proceed forward.
So, Mr. Senate President, we just heard from Lieutenant Governor said that, it depends on the branches. They're responsible for their own implementations on these things. You've started to hear about this for about a week or so now. Are there some things that you in the Senate and your other legislators have started to talk about how you guys would start at your place, at the top?
We have, but it would be premature to go into the details because again, this is what amounts to overnight, right? Like the time is inconsequential whether we know last week or today. The fact is September 22nd. So we will look inward, obviously, into ourselves and see what we can do, because the cuts can't be everybody but us, obviously. But to what extent that is, I don't know. We have to go back and really look at the budget and see how much we can and what that looks like.
So do you have 8 days to figure this out, or is this something that you're able to?
We're working closely with the House, so obviously everything has to work in concert at this point in time. We can't work in silos.
So you're gonna call in the agencies again in order?
No, at this point, I think we're pretty much at the end of that function, and now we just need to move forward. We know, we understand where PSS stands with regards to their funding needs, but then again, if the money goes down, then what are we to do? We're gonna try our best to close the gaps on every agency to ensure that all the departments that run off of grants don't supplant, you know, the funding source by using the grant money where it shouldn't be and jeopardizing the services. So we have to take everything into consideration and measure twice and cut once. And we have to do all of this within 8 days.
Governor, I would like to go back to the governor. The congresswoman mentioned earlier that there was a summit 5 years ago. If you are familiar with the recommendation that was made at the time, do you think, is there any part of the recommendation that was actually implemented over the years?
Which recommendation?
In the summit that was mentioned by the congresswoman 20 years ago, in 2020?
Fiscal response, the 2020.
Which one?
The 2020 fiscal response.
I think you, some of it has been, I feel like austerity measures.
To answer your question,
Yes, yes,
Arnold,
please.
yes, there have been some actions that were taken. It was in the governor's directive, you know, including the reduction of OT, the reduction of travel, the hiring freezes, the reduction in vacancies. Those things were addressed. I believe it's the legislative changes that we need to consider now moving forward. And these are introduction of new taxes, such as an internet sales tax, amend the casino license. Those were license legislation. Those were considerations of the fiscal summit, and other things like possibly reforming our tax code and our rebate percentage. Those were other ideas as well. And so we are revisiting those, but for the most part, on the administrative changes, I believe we have made actions on those. It's working together on the legislative changes.
On the part of the legislature, is there, Senate President, is there any something on the table in the legislature in response to the summit 5 years ago about the reduction of size, for example?
Yeah.
rooms?
You guys wanna?
The simple answer is yes, right? We've cut the vacancies in the government, but that's also a very unfair question to ask on the table, because when we, right after the summit, ARPA money was paid in. We're anticipating to grow with that money and build our economy through the ARPA monies. So the legislature acted on those specific portions on the budget, meaning vacancies were removed. We transferred funds to PSS, and in that case, a lot of the money went to PSS. And even the ask of the judicial back then, they were giving funds through that process. But on the actions of other types of legislations were put on hold, because with the assumption of this new ARPA money, it was going to help build back our tourism industry. So I guess it's almost like a double-edged sword. We were in this summit, and then all of a sudden we had this extra money infused into the Commonwealth. So we started moving forward with different types of options to improve our status and on the tourism side.
I don't think it's an unfair question, because it's 5 years ago. People have been like, some of the
Yeah.
documents are still in the heads of a lot of people.
I do understand that, right? But you're asking for a situation of the central government that went from an anticipated budget of, like, say, 170 million as an example, cut down through the pandemic, and then an infusion of $500 million to assist in the growth that were those ideas were kind of put on hold. But yet we did cut on the vacancies and stuff like that. All the government positions that weren't filled within a period, we removed in the budget and actually utilized. So the downsizing of the budget, the government, yes, we did that part. It's the other ask that economic summit that were presented were kind of put on hold because with the idea that we were going to build our industries back up with the $500 million that was infused into the CNMI's coffers.
So it's negotiations are reviewing or going back to?
Yes, we're reviewing. I mean, you can look at this budget right now that the House passed. We removed about $3.4 million worth of vacancy positions that were distributed out. We cut the budget by $29 million to address the settlement fund obligation. So the House have made cuts on that side, and it's unfair that the Senate's also working in the process to get this budget out of the legislature knowing this new information. It's unfortunate, but the reality is we're here, and we have to face it, and the delegates made her presence here in the CNMI available today so that we can be on the same position as a CNMI when she gets back to DC. And now we need to support her. She's here to support us. We need to do the same, reciprocate the support to her out in DC.
Thank you.
You want to talk about tomorrow? That we're briefing the OIA again, or?
So the governor would like to inform you that we have a status follow-up tomorrow with the OIA 902 working group. Again, it's to further our discussions on the immediate relief that we've been requesting. It's to provide them an update on the fiscal reforms that we are considering as a CNMI. And this is a great opportunity for us to show them that we have a cohesive approach now, and that we have the support of both houses of the legislature, and that these discussions on fiscal reforms are out there. It's on the table. It will be considered. Again, nothing is certain. We haven't received the award yet for the fiscal relief, but tomorrow will be another step towards that. So hopefully what we have provided to them is sufficient for them to move forward with the award.
How much money was that fiscal relief again?
It's about 5.7 million, and it has very direct uses, like the delegate had mentioned.
For the first quarter. So that was, that is money that does not require appropriation.
And that money will be used for?
Specifically for, Department of Finance, ERP financial system, the medical referral, government utilities and operations, Department of Corrections inmate care, and the 25% retirees pension.
So if that money comes in, we don't need to, if that supplemental money comes in, then we can retract the austerity measures? Is that?
This first package that we're working on is not sufficient to cover the entire budgetary gap, but it will help. And so like I said, as federal assistance comes in, our scenarios change, our austerity reduction in hours will change. So again, this is a fluid situation, and we just keep moving forward, hoping that we will secure those federal assistance.
Because more businesses could close down in that time. So we're prepared for that.
Conditions continue to change, so we have to take those into account as well.
Because everyone's hanging by their hair, right?
You mentioned that these work hours cuts are gonna be effective immediately, so does that start this week?
No, it's not gonna start this week. We have to sit down and we'll wait for the budget to pass, and then we'll start working on the plan for the sturdy.
So it's 2 weeks.
Probably so.
There's no exact date. The goal is, again, for us to kind of try and get this subsidy, right, and help ourselves by showing that we're making these efforts. The plans are going to come down, of course, pending the budget approval of both houses, and then signing it into law. That's when a lot of these changes are going to be effectuated. And the reason for that is, again, we're already in the last end of the fiscal year. So the goal is really to just try and come up with all these plans and make sure that we, transparently put it out to our people and keep, putting it out there and making sure that people know what we're trying to do. Again, the goal, and I just like to highlight this, that the goal is we have some opportunity to get some subsidies to help us. We just have to show that we can try and help ourselves by trying to make these adjustments. So that's the goal.
So how much do we have in MPLT to be able to use some of those as resources?
Well, right now, we're waiting for the passage of that bill to authorize the MPLT loan. We're only looking at the 29 million for, to address the pension. So we have not discussed anything more than that with MPLT, and so our efforts right now will focus on the 29 million.
But you saw the letter from MPLT about their
Yes.
concerns. Can you
Yeah.
respond to that directly? Yeah.
So right now, MPLT is wanting to discuss further the use of a margin account. However, that was not authorized in the bill that's before the AG and the governor. And so that will require separate discussions and potentially separate legislation. So what we can move forward with is the law that has passed the legislature, and that would not include the margin account at this time. What their letter also indicated was without the margin account, the repayment period would extend from 7 years to possibly 12 years, depending on the performance of the corpus. And so, again, we have not had discussions yet with MPLT. We look forward to the passage of the law, and we intend to move forward with the conditions of the public law.
I also want to reiterate that the assumptions that we're, in terms of the relief amount that we're looking at, is dependent upon the CNMI passing the MPLT loan. So I don't think there's anybody here who really is in love with the idea of taking out an MPLT loan. The Senate certainly wasn't too happy about it, and I don't think the House was happy about it, but I don't think it's a matter of liking it, it's a matter of, these are just conditions that we have to meet to be able to avail of some of these resources.
Let's just know where to go. We need to do this. This is very critical for all of us here. And I'm very happy that the Senate and the House, are here, and we're gonna work together for our people here in the Commonwealth, and that's the primary goal for all of us here. We wanna make sure that we are fiscally responsible for what we're doing. And the federal government is aware of what's happening here. I mean, even the deputy secretary canceled his trip to Samoa when we were there discussing our issues here. So that's how serious it is. And we appreciate that. Congresswoman being there, it's a lot of help for all of us here. No choice. We have to take the hit. Like you said,
If
we're on
I'm-
fire, right?
If I may, Governor, I think it's important to just iterate and just, give our community a little hope, because, we're starting to see all branches of government coming together to actually try and push this, CNMI forward. It's challenging times. We saw Department of Transportation come down. We saw some individuals that we hadn't seen in a while here in the Commonwealth. So the need for this exposure now is now more than ever. They're coming down here and actually trying to look for ways to help us. And thanks to, of course, Congresswoman here for helping us out and bringing these, having us an audience where we can actually ask for these assistance. And the governor's trip out there and meeting with OIA and their commitment to helping us. This is an illustration of us, trying to make sure that we help our Commonwealth. So I think it's just really important for us to come together as one leadership and try and get out of this this situation that we're in. Thank you.
We're not trying to paint any rosy picture, because everything is true, what we're saying here. I mean, Secretary of Finance and the Budget Director have been working on this for the longest hours, even in Washington, I left them behind, and they spent 1 week there sitting down with the OIA budget people, trying to figure out where we at. So when they came back, I said, let's find out where we at, I want a true picture of our budget situation. And that's what we're gonna present to the people. And we just have to take the bite and work together, all of us, the legislature, the administration, and our congresswoman helping us in Washington. And we'll see where we go from here. There's a lot of things to be done. So again, I want to thank the media for joining us this afternoon. You can go out and paint the good picture to our people in the Commonwealth that we're almost broke. No line. Okay? Any other questions?
Are we going forward now? I know you're going to be working together with all the different branches and all the agencies and everything. How are you going to roll out the information going forward to the public?
We will have meetings. I'll have my cabinet together, and we're gonna sit down and talk, and probably invite, we're the commissioners here. So, he's aware of the situation, and we'll probably get a hold of MPOT to sit down with us again, you know? I mean, we're all in this situation, so we have to work together for people here.
Just to follow up, like if you were gonna cut jobs, are you committed to announcing that
They
as
will.
it happens?
That's gonna be part of the austerity measure.
But you're
We're
gonna
be putting
communicate
out
that
the
openly with the
executive
public?
order on the plan, you know, everything is gonna be documented down. Travel restriction, cut down on 2 passengers going around in a government vehicle, you know, and everything else that we need to cut. We just have to sacrifice. And that's the main point.
Meals at board meetings?
No, we gotta have meals. Who makes the decision about the merging of departments?
I'm gonna have to do it. I have to go to the legislature also and get assistance on that. But we have to look at all these agencies that are probably small agencies, probably combined, you know, into one agency, so we can save some funding. Okay? We're good?
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys, appreciate it. Congresswoman, thank you very much.
Thanks for letting us do our microphone gymnastics.
I know.
Your search for unbeatable internet speeds is over. Visit Docomo Pacific today and sign up for as low as $60 a month so you can experience our fast, reliable internet speeds for yourself. Docomo Pacific, better together.